My White Dwarf 471 has arrived, and so it's time to give the Army of Renown Crusher Stampede a go. Pre-game command points spending. I'm buying Bounty of the Hive Fleet for that extra bio artifact. And I'm snagging the Stratagem Alpha Leader Beast for an extra Warlord trait, but this Warlord trait will be picked from the adaptive physiologies and will be Enhanced Resistance, meaning any -1 or -2 armour penetration attacks, of which the Ultramarines have a fair number, that armour penetration is reduced to 0. My Warlord will be a Prime, and of course will have the synaptic link for Unchecked Ferocity for an extra hit when rolling a 6, and it'll have my first relic, the Adaptive Neural Lobe, which is awesome for this foe. Ultramarines have a chance to recover a command point each time they spend one, so they tend to chuck out a lot. Each time they do, if I roll a 5+, I get a command point as well. Maximum of 1 per turn, but that's likely a net gain of 4 command points. Because of this, I want to keep this gem for the whole game to try and get as many command points as possible, and with him ensconced in a block of 6 warriors, this should help, and the enhanced resistance on top of that should seal the deal on longevity. They will also have Synaptic Link of BIOWEAPON Bond for +1 to hit. And I'm spending the command point in advance to give them Rapid Adaptation for an extra point of weapon skill and an extra point of ballistic skill. These guys all have bone swords and death spitters, and there are 2 venom cannon as well. I'm also fielding a unit of 3 Tyranid warriors with scything talons and death spitters, and a venom cannon, and also they have their own bioweapon bond synaptic link. Now I'm packing a Neurothrope with the stampede power of infused energies for re-rolling melee to hit rolls, and it'll have the resonance barb to help make sure it succeeds, and also for those smites. On the topic of psychers, I'm also snagging the Swarm Lord, who will be packing Onslaught and Catalyst, and for the first time I'm going to give these chonky linebackers a go. 3 Tyranid Guard with adrenal glands, so they are only 1 inch slower than the Swarm Lord they are tasked with defending. To take care of any nasty heavy weapon snipers lurking in obscuring terrain, I have 5 Hive Guard with Impaler Cannon. And now the Muscle, Old One Eye, flanked by a Carnifex Brood. I tried these as a Kraken patrol, and they got shredded before they even got near combat. So, some Spore Cysts to offset this a little with a -1 to hit, and heavy venom cannon so they can chuck out some hurt as they stroll on in. Plus, with big guns never tire, they can continue blasting even when in melee. And speaking of big guns, next up, a couple of Exocrine, and finally a Morlock lurking under the ground somewhere, waiting to pounce. We rolled for a mission and got Scorched Earth. You get points for holding objectives, but also from going into your enemy's deployment zone and spending a turn committing to the action of raising their objective, which is also a secondary you can pick. You know what? I like that. Considering I'm going full-on Stampede Assault, let's go with it. So, my secondaries are Assassination, because Ultramarines tend to have a lot of characters, Engage on all fronts, because I'm going to be rushing across the battlefield while leaving a few units either in obscuring or on an objective in my deployment zone, and Raise for when I get there and have cleared an objective of enemies. The Ultramarines are going with Remove the Head, Grind them down, and Raise also. So looks like we're aiming to get into each other's deployment zone, and this could be a real slaughterfest. Okay, the Tyranids are going to infest and the Ultramarines are going to deploy. For me, starting at the top, we have Swarmlord with his Tyrant Guard. The Neurothrope is lurking behind and will follow them in. In the furthest obscuring ruin with flaws, we have the Tyranid Prime and his 6 warriors. Next to them and sitting on the objective, counting as 12 models and out of sight of the Hellblasters, is an Exocrine. In the middle structure, the Hive Guard with a 3-man unit of warriors to ensure synapse and to constantly funnel them their bioweapon bond for +1 to hit, and also to emerge and intercept any flanking manoeuvres on my precious but obviously aggravating Hive fellows. And another Exocrine on the other objective, meaning the 3-man unit of warriors are also keeping the big bug bioplasma in synapse. And closest to the camera on the edge of the battlefield, we have Old One Eye and its Carnifex brood. For the Ultramarines, starting at the far end, Interceptor flyboys by the container, along with assault intercessors with chainswords. Yikes, this end of the board looks like it's going to be Malia Go-Go. A bunch of infantry intercessors, a sergeant, a librarian, and a couple of apothecaries. The ruin in the middle is a party palace rave of Hellblasters with a captain and an apothecary. More flyguys on the objective, models currently under assembly. And finally, some infantry intercessors in obscuring cover opposite my Carnifex gang. We both rolled 2s for the go, so re-rolling, and the Tyranids take the offensive. The Tyrant Guard roll a 6 for advance, and the Swarmlord a 5. Perfect. They charge forth as one, and the Neurothrope starts to float along behind them, trying to look inconspicuous. Old One Eye and his boys begin their march, warming up the venom cannon as they go. Hopefully these can whittle down some of those Interceptor fellows as they go. Catalyst on the Tyrant Guard, and that's it for now. Let's not press our luck on those double ones. The main unit of warriors. Only the pair of venom cannon are in range, so let's rip with that. Just a straight shot into the infantry for now. 3 hits and 1 gets through. Gets a point of damage that the apothecary fails to save. The second venom cannon goes for the guys atop Hellblaster House. We decided that being on the upper floor is cover but not obscuring. 4 hits, 2 of which get through, doing 4 wounds. The apothecary fails to do his job and 2 go down. The Hive Guard with bioweapon bond drop their full volley into the Hellblaster Party Palace, but the Ultramarines go with transhuman physiology to mitigate the damage, and they recover the command point as well. 8 hits, but only 2 get through to transhuman. 2 wounds, and the apothecary fails, and another Space Marine goes down. Okay, getting there. First Exocrine, shooting straight down the line. 3 hits, but some apothecary magic means only 2 Primaris are taken out. The other Exocrine takes aim at the Interceptors on the home objective. 4 hits, 3 get through, and that takes out 2 flyboys. And finally, the Carnifex let fly with their heavy venom cannon. 3 shots, 1 hit, and 3 wounds, which is just enough to slay one of them, and so they mark the Carnifex with the "I hate you and I want you to die" strat they have. But this time, it does cost them a command point. And that's the end of my turn, and yep, I totally forgot that the Exocrine can double shoot because they didn't move. The infantry move forward and take up position against the pipes. Resuscitation of focus on the hidden Hellblasters for +1 to hit. The rest of the Sons of Guilliman continue their march into No Man's Land. I say no man's, but the Tyranid called dibs on it. Look at all these ruins. If you wanted it, you'd take care of it. This planet is salvage, mate. Anywho, the Interceptors fire up their packs and scream out to take cover in the ruin in the middle of the battlefield. They are ensconced in obscuring, but hopefully not from a Carnifex charging around and giving them a bit of a shock. Smite on the Warlord, but the Neurothrope steps in and with the Resonance Barb takes it out. Psychic Fortress doesn't go off because of the shadow in the warp, which I finally remembered exists because I had totally forgotten about it in the last game. A command point brings back a Hellblaster, and I checked for the lobe but failed, but then remembered the transhuman physiology command point expenditure. I checked for that and succeeded, regaining a command point. We then had to check the wording, because Did the Ultramarines spend the command point and recover it, or did they simply not spend it? Let's lawyer up and hit the books. Okay, turns out the command point is refunded, so the adaptive neural lobe works after all. Last game, the Ultramarines didn't realise that their apothecary could heal without using command points. But then again, a certain Tyranid chump forgot the Leviathan 6-up save for about the first 3 turns of the last game. Basing the targeting decision on their listed power levels, Swarmlord becomes the focus and the Hellblasters on top overcharge with their captain, who used an inspiring command to make sure they got on target, and of course it gets refunded. Martial Precision gets one of them an auto hit, no refund on that command point. Heavy Doctrine for more armour penetration, so it's all down to the invulnerable save. 1 save to get through and drop a wound because of the Crusher save, and then it all successfully transfers to the Tyrant Guard. Catalyst takes care of 1 wound though. Chaplain's Litany of Hate for the other Hellblasters, overcharge, 5 hits, Swarmlord saves 3 of them with his invuln. They transfer to the Guard, and again, Catalyst for the win. At this point, the Hellblasters just go for the Tyrant Guard to clear them out of the way so they can focus on the Swarmlord. But both invulns took care of the Hellblasters' fire. So yeah, not sure what the point of the taking fire for the Tyrant ability is really for. It's easier just to chew them up first and then target the exposed Tyrant. I guess if you don't know what they do, you end up being slightly less effective on the first couple of shots and then learn what to really target and do so. I think a Look Out Sir would be more effective to make the Tyrant Guard fulfill their true purpose, but hey, whatever. Intercessors all let loose on the Tyrant Guard because the Ultramarines know that Swarmlord in melee is a whirlwind of destruction, and with the blade parry it is also exceedingly hard to wound it. 6 hits, 3 go through, and Catalyst fouls me. Another 3 hits, and Catalyst lets me down yet again. The Guard are dropping quick. 9 shots of pistol fire and only 1 hit. Assault Intercessors go for the Guard with their pistols. 2 hits, armour blocks 1, and as usual, Catalyst fouls the other. Then another barrage with no luck. The Apothecaries open up and get another 2 wounds into the Guard as both Catalyst and Chiton let the Tyranids down yet again. The Interceptors in the ruin draw aim on the Carnifex brood. They've already got -1 because of their advance, so these spore cysts are irrelevant. Can't change a roll by more than plus or -1, right? The captain can't get an unobstructed view to all the bits of the Carnifex, so tries to get rid of those final stubborn wounds on the Tyrant Guard. He rolls 3 1s, but he re-rolls those as he gets into his own aura. So he gets a hit, but that doesn't get through that dense chitin. The Neurothrope casts infused energies on the Swarmlord. My intention was to drop it on the Tyrant Guard, but there are so few left it's not really worth it. It fails, even with the +1 to cast and re-rolling 1s. Drag. Swarmlord successfully casts Catalyst on himself because the lone and wounded Tyrant Guard is going to last like about 2 more seconds, and if it charges, Overwatch is very likely to erase him. And yes, I totally forget to cast all of my smites. Swarmlord and his lone limping guard move in, getting ready to charge, and he uses his Hive Commander so that the Neurothrope can advance in the shooting phase after moving, and this gets it tucked away behind a nice chunk of obscuring terrain, so it can keep throwing out the smites while Swarmlord keeps everybody distracted. The wounded Carnifex breaks away from the pack and moves to chomp the Interceptors lurking in the ruin. The other Carnifex makes a run for the other piece of obscuring terrain, so it can take shelter from the Hellblasters. Then it can wait for the Hive Guard to finish them off, so it can jump out and raise the objective. Of course, when I moved him under, I heard the clunk of plastic on plastic and realised I had been so focused on Hellblaster House that I had completely forgotten that there's a squad under there. Okay, into 2 inches so I can charge. Old One-Eye moves into obscuring cover and his base is on the nearest objective to claim it this turn and not get hellblasted to smithereens for having done so. My Tyranid warriors are now just in Death Spitter range by about 1/8 of an inch. 12 hits, 9 wounding hits, 4 get through. The Apothecary fumbles and 2 infantry pay the ultimate price for the Emperor. The last member of the squad gets venom cannoned for a single strength 8 hit, that kills him. The 3 warrior units are now in range and open up. It's not much, but every little counts. 3 wounding hits, only 1 wound goes through. The venom cannon goes for the Hellblasters partying on the roof. 2 hits that both wound and dish out a total of 6. The Apothecary is on the job and saves a wound, preventing one from dying, but the others go down, leaving that guy on the very verge of death. Damn, these Primaris can soak up damage. Then, the Hive Guard drop their full barrage into Hellblaster Mansion, and I roll a deluge of 1s, and then another 3 1s to wound, but 6 wounds finishes off the rooftop guys. But there's another few units hidden underneath, and after that utterly hideous roll, I needed to get them winkled out so I can move my monsters. Swarmlord is about to be exposed, and those Carnifex are trapped if I don't get rid of some of those whopper guns standing by to purge my Xenos. So, 2 command points, single-minded annihilation. Let's try that again. Gotta love that ignoring cover. Anyway, 10 shots, 9 hits, 8 of them successfully wound, now that's more like it, and the damage wipes out a bunch of lurking Hellblasters, and the litany of hate falls on the Hive Guard for doing so. With much fewer Hellblasters though, I can start bringing everything out of hiding. I've been engaged on all fronts all game, so let's try and start taking out characters to get those assassination points. With multiple apothecaries, a librarian and a captain, I should be able to make bank. Both Carnifexes miss point blank with their venom cannon. Exocrine into the assault intercessors. 4 hits, 3 of them wound. The apothecary stops 2, but that still means 2 assault fellows dead. Exocrine 2 goes for the same posse, and at this point I kick myself because I just remembered Weapon Beast, which allows my Exocrine to shoot twice if they didn't move. Anyway, 2 more intercessors die. Okay, now that I've finally remembered, they both launch some bioplasma into the main infantry force, trying to open up the characters so I can take them out. 4 kills with 1 Exocrine's second shot. The other takes out an already wounded Marine, and another goes down, leaving only the Sergeant still standing. The wounded Carnifex charges into the building. Knowing these guys are pretty tough, I spend the command point and go with the new strat, Breaking Through. A d6 for each of your monster's wounds, and on a 3+, because I have a higher strength than their toughness, you do a mortal wound. So, 6 mortal wounds are dished out and 2 Space Marines perish. Because he's within range of Old One-Eye, he gets +1 to hit and re-rolling 1s. 3 strength 6 hits, doing 3 wounds, and the last of the squad is torn asunder. The other Carnifex charges, 4 hits, but only 1 of them wounding. The Ultramarines were expecting a slaughterhouse under there. Instead, it's a minor scratch. Nice roll in there, Carnifex, you big useless dope. A command point for Overrun, and the Carnifex that wiped out the Interceptors advances instead of consolidates, and takes what I thought was the central objective. Turns out, we got carried away in our eagerness to get into the fight and marked the centre of battlefield as an objective when it's not. Whatever, the Carnifex is on his way into the fray anyways. The last Tyrant Guard limps towards the enemy with a half-hearted charge, and gets overwatched to death. Wow, they suck. 2 command points for Super Overwatch on the Swarmlord, who comes in to charge and engage both a unit and the characters, so I don't run into the blunder I made last time. Killing the character and finding Swarmlord all, oh, I'm standing in the open now as a viable shooting target. Oops. And now I recall my missed smites, but the Ultramarines are generous and have denies available still, so let's just rectify the oversight. But the Resonance Barb makes it just tough enough that the denier fails. 2 wounds on the Librarian, a second Smite at warp charge of 6, a reroll of the 1 gets it to actually work, and another single mortal wound on the armour-plated Bookworm. Okay, after the time warp correction for my blunder, Swarmlord opts to target the unit in order to clear the way. Transhuman physiology is applied, so only wound rolls of 4+ work in preparation of some nasty damage at strength 8, and the timing couldn't have been more perfect. Only 1 hit goes through, doing 3 damage. The apothecary stops a wound, and only a single guy goes down. The prehensile towel hits, gets through the armour, and does 2 damage. So the little pointy towel did the same as 4 giant bone sabres. The Librarian goes with something that sounded like Gene Rot for 6's auto wound, and they're going to put everything into this fight, it seems. 4 attacks, now 5 because he got charged, with auto wound 6's. 2 hits, a command reroll, and he gets it refunded to make another successful hit. But a very poor wound roll scuppers the plan to take out my Swarmlord. The infantry roll way better to wound, nothing but 5s and 6's, but they just don't have the Librarian's damage output. However, Swarmlord rolls a near mirror image, nothing but 5s and 6's. And the 1 wound that goes through is stopped by Catalyst. Finally, the drought looks to be over. An Ultramarine is lost to combat attrition, reminding me to check that my Exocrine and Carnifex are still in Synapse. I'd forgotten about the one deep in the deployment zone. It left Synapse some time ago, but I'll have to remember that for the future, and maybe break the 6-man Tyranids into 2 3s and assign another small squad to follow the Carnifex brood in. The flyguys gun their engines and rush into the middle. Even though it is not an actual objective, we did learn something. So, the Marines have objective secure, and I don't because it's a monster, and extensions of the hive mind, which grants OBSEC, only applies to troops. But I can use hive mind imperative to get it. My Carnifex will then count as OBSEC, so it's whoever has the most models. Crusher Stampede has him counting as his number of remaining wounds, which is 3, so a draw. Objective not secured, but also not lost. The infantry facing the other Carnifex fall back to get out of there and try and sneakily snag the central objective, but only 1 can touch the objective, so Hive Mind Imperative with old One Eye on full wounds should get me that one as well. At the other end of the battlefield, more Marines fall back to acquire the objective, and because they can fall back and shoot, this might be a problem. They're about to get a lot of victory points here. The apothecaries go to heal the Librarian and get him back up 3 wounds. Ah, what sort of reinforcement is this? So much biomass! Old One Eye remains unscathed, but the other Carnifex sustains 3 wounds, finishing it off. And there's no death throws, which is weird. I totally would have thought they'd have it. Anyways, it just collapses, dead. Thinking about it, I should have stayed in cover and hammered away with the heavy venom cannon for a bit, until it was safe to emerge. Bad impetuous Carnifex, bad! The ones on the distant objective open up on the Neurothrope, but the invulnerable save takes care of the only wounding hit. The Hellblasters, who were poised to finish off the now deceased Carnifex, are now deprived of their target, having fallen for the glass cannon lure of the big beastie. Hopefully the new codex will spruce them up a bit and give them a bit more genuine cause for concern. Swarmlord faces the wrath of the Primaris. 25 attacks! That's a lot of chainsword chafing. Only 2 get through, and Catalyst takes care of 1 of them. Damn, this big bug is tough. Honor the Chapter gives them another shot at this, and they recover the command point this time. 6s are auto wounds, they get 2 and an additional 2 hits. The Blade Parry works a treat, and only 1 gets through that Catalyst fails to stop. Swarmlord targets the Chainsword guys. I don't like that 25 attacks thing. They didn't do much, but 25 rolls, or maybe 50, could see a fluke deluge of awesome rolls. Transhuman kicks in again as a precaution. Swarmlord gets a 6 for an additional mortal wound in addition to 2 other hits doing 3 wounds each, taking out a squad, and the tail does nothing this time. And now it's the Ultramarines' turn to realise they didn't forget their smites, but rather forgot their entire psychic phase. So let's hit the rewind time button and get that into play before we continue with the ruck. A smite within Shadow of the Warp does 3 mortals to the Swarmlord after the Neurothrope fails the deny. A second smite of a 1 and 2 warp roll, -1 for Shadow in the Warp. It's not perils though, because I believe it has to be natural 1s. Anyways, regarding the smite that worked, I spend a command point and use Void in the Warp. After a cast and a failed deny, you get another chance to deny on a 4+, which it does. Swarmlord doesn't lose anything. A command roll on the 1 and the 2, it still doesn't go off, and the last of the fighting doesn't do anything. Okay, I spend a command point, and Old One Eye counts as 8 models, stealing the objective from the Marines who also have OBSEC. So, 3 objectives each, 10 points each, I get engaged, the Ultramarines killed a monster, so 2 points for bring it down. A command point back for Battle Forged. I've made the neural lobe roll every round, so I am already up a command point from buying the relic with 1. With the Hellblasters all but gone, time to deploy the weaker bugs. The Tyranids, along with the Warlord Prime, thunder from their hiding place and onto the objective to contest it, because being troops, they have OBSEC too, and so it's most numbers win. The 3-man unit also move forward, not getting as far because of negotiating around and through the Hive Guard. If the Hive Guard can do a bunch of damage to those Interceptors, maybe the Warriors' Death Spitters and Venom Cannon can finish them off and get on the objective via use of the stratagem Overrun. Or I'll have to risk a seriously lengthy charge roll to do it. The Neurothrope moves back into obscuring cover. The Carnifex forgoes his Venom Cannon and starts raising the objective after moving onto it. I pondered deploying the Morlock, have it explode up by the Swarmlord so that it might dish out enough mortals to clear the objective. I checked, and the mortal wounds are only on enemy models, not friendlies, so I don't have to fret about accidentally killing Swarmlord. If I use Unexpected Incursion to add 2 to the wound rolls, that is really likely to clear the area and let Swarmlord raise it, gaining me max on the secondaries. Now, things may be looking good, but let's not get overconfident. I don't trust these Space Marines. I don't trust they don't have some fudgy weird solution to this predicament. So, Morlock stays underground for now. Rapid regeneration on Swarmlord gets 2 wounds back and is no longer bracketed, and it casts Catalyst on itself to ensure it stays that way. And then it tries a smite on the Librarian and rolls a 10. The Librarian opts not to try and counter this and takes 3 mortal wounds. The Neurothrope throws a second smite that works. The deny fails, but a command reroll successfully negates it. And then it puts infused energies on the Warlord for rerolling to hit. The Warriors open up. Now, you can only have 1 synaptic trait, so the bioweapon bond, +1 to hit, is channeled to the Exocrine behind them, and they'll take the unchecked ferocity for an extra hit on natural 6s, along with the Warlord trait of Swarmlord for a hit reroll. 8 6s! 24 hits against this little group of 4. Okay, kind of a little bit of overkill there. Not so much killed as turned into transhuman paste. Of course, if they roll the same wall of 6s that I did, they might survive. And of course, a grand roll ensues. 7 5s. They are destroyed, but only by just a single wound. Phew! The objective is mine. Uncontested. Just. Venom Cannon on the Apothecary does 5 wounds. He saves 1, and that puts him on a single solitary wound. The 3 warrior squad opens up on the Apothecary and get rid of that last wound. The Venom Cannon then takes the other Apothecary down 4 wounds, and once again another one holds on to that single wound. What is it with these guys hanging on by a thread? Okay, the Exocrine slams 9 hits into the Interceptors, and the damage is enough to demolish the whole squad and opens up that objective to my warriors securing it. The other Exocrine makes use of his 36-inch range to go for the other Apothecary and get me those character kills. 6 wounds, and his apothecary powers don't save him. Hive Guard into the remaining guys lurking in the ruin. Transhuman is used, and the command point is refunded. 6 wounding hits, 4 get through, but a feeble 6 wounds gets rid of only 2 Marines. But I do get to complete my raising of the objective. Old One Eye finally sees some action. It storms into these 4 Ultramarines. Immortal Battering Ram successfully does 2 mortal wounds and gives me +1 to hit. I pondered using the Crushing Claws, but I think that may be overkill. I want to ensure hits, so I went with the Scything Talons, re-rolling 1s and natural 6s to allow it to make another attack. I want these Astartes gone, so I'm opting for accuracy over excessive damage, and hopefully they won't roll something incredibly jammy to get out of this. They don't, and they are eradicated. Damn, Old One Eye is good. Expensive, very expensive, but good. If Carnifex and Tyrant Guard get just a little love, even just an extra toughness, this list I'm running here could be rather awesome and less wasteful feeling. Mind you, the Brood did well, and the Tyrant Guard did get Swarmlord into the fray unscathed. I wonder if Hive Commander and maybe Metabolic Overdrive on himself would do the same thing though? Turn him into kind of a melee missile? Swarmlord gets 5 hits, 2 are natural 6s on the Librarian for 2 additional mortal wounds, and he uses Only in Death Does Duty End, but Blade Parry stops the attack. The last of the Hellblaster group with the Captain and the Apothecary move to the pipe, and the Apothecary brings a Hellblaster back to life. But wait, oops, psychic. A couple of smites into the Swarmlord get him down to 5 wounds. The Hellblasters unleash on the Carnifex, and 12 damage turn him into a big old pile of smoking ash. The Captain and the Librarian take some potshots at Swarmlord, but not enough to bring him down, and at this point, it's clear it's all over. The next shooting phase is likely to take out the last of the Ultramarines, and the spread of the swarm across the planet's surface will continue. No doubt the Imperium are gathering fresh forces to mount a counterattack, and oaths of moment are being sworn on Ultramar to avenge this defeat. And the other good thing about Crusher Stampede, without 1 wound models, it takes about 2 minutes to put your fleet away after the game's done. Okay, lessons learned. Remember my smites, not just powers, and the Exocrine double shots. Synapse for Carnifex. Might drop their heavy venom cannon, they just didn't do that much. I don't know, I might drop the Tyrant Guard as well, and just try and use Swarmlord as a missile and get him straight in. Hold off for a turn to let the enemy advance, and then storm them. Onslaught was a dumb choice. Maybe Psychic Scream to try and erase some of the enemy's psychic powers. However, the Neurothrope floating in with them proved really handy. So, Hive Commander so it can keep up, and the Tyrant Guard can offer it "Look out, sir." The cost of Tyrant Guard to get a Psychic Wrecking Ball and a Physical Wrecking Ball in unscathed might justify their point cost. Anywho, a grand game. Lots of fun, loved the Crusher Stampede, plenty learned and plenty explored.